Hey everyone, welcome back.
Yeah.
We're diving into the world of ADHD today. And not just the clinical stuff, we're going deeper. We're going right to the source, the ADHD subreddit. It's like opening a window into the real lives of people with ADHD. The struggles, the triumphs, the stuff you don't always hear about.
hmm
One thing that jumped out at me scrolling through the subreddit was the frustration with those just do this kind of solutions to ADHD.
Yeah, it's tough because those oversimplifications just don't address the core issues.
Totally. Like there's this one post, someone was like, just use a calendar,
Yeah.
as if that solves everything.
Right, it's like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off.
Exactly. It shows a lack of understanding about how ADHD actually works.
Absolutely. And a big part of that is executive function.
Executive function. What's that in a nutshell?
Think of it as your brain's management system. It helps you plan, organize, focus. But with ADHD, that system can be a little glitchy.
So like a smartphone with a buggy operating system.
Exactly. It might look fine on the outside, but the inside's a mess.
So using a calendar isn't just about remembering, it's about executive function.
Precisely. And that's often where the struggle is.
Makes sense. Speaking of struggles, there's a big one rocking the subreddit right now. The methylphenidate shortage, especially in the UK.
Yeah, a lot of people rely on that medication to manage their ADHD.
I saw one user joking, "Dear drug companies, make more drugs." But behind the humor, you can sense the anxiety.
Of course, because for them, it's not just a drug, it's a lifeline.
So what does methylphenidate actually do, for those who don't know?
Well, it's a stimulant, and it works by boosting certain neurotransmitters in the brain. Dopamine, norepinephrine, these are crucial for attention, focus, impulse control.
Things that people with ADHD often have trouble with.
Exactly. So when that medication's suddenly gone, it can be really disruptive.
Like losing a tool you depend on every single day.
Exactly. It underscores how important it is to talk to your doctor, explore all options, especially during times like these.
Absolutely. Finding the right treatment plan is so individual. And speaking of individual, it's fascinating how differently ADHD can manifest. It's not always the stereotypical image of someone bouncing off the walls.
Right. It's a spectrum, and everyone experiences it in their own way.
Like I was reading about hyperfocus, where someone's so locked in, they block everything else
Yeah,
in.
and then you have sensory sensitivities, where
Yeah.
even small things can be overwhelming.
And then there are the paradoxical reactions to medication. Some people actually focus better with a little bit of background noise or stimulation.
Exactly. It's all about finding what works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's amazing, though, right? How everyone's experience is so different.
Totally. Like this one user was saying they study better with their phone out
Yeah.
during class. Like it helps them focus.
It sounds counterintuitive, but it makes sense for some with ADHD.
Really?
Yeah, it's about stimulation. For them, some people with ADHD need that extra input.
So it's like their brain needs that background buzz to actually lock in.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot, that right level of stimulation.
Wow. Our brains are strange.
They are fascinating, though, right? And this actually ties into another big topic from the subreddit, masking.
Yeah, that feeling of having to pretend to be neurotypical.
Exactly. It's like wearing a mask all the time to fit in.
And I bet that gets exhausting.
It does. It's emotionally draining, always monitoring yourself, adjusting your behavior.
I can only imagine it's like you're always on.
Exactly. And that takes a toll. It can lead to burnout, anxiety.
Definitely. And it's not always easy to explain that to others.
Right, because on the surface you might seem fine, but underneath.
There's this whole hidden struggle going on.
Exactly. And that can make it hard to get the support you need.
Absolutely. And it makes finding the right treatment even more important.
It does, because it's not just about managing symptoms, it's about quality of life.
So true. And one thing that really struck me about this subreddit was the sense of community, the support people were offering each other.
It's so important, that shared understanding, knowing you're not alone.
Exactly. Like people were celebrating each other's wins, no matter how small.
And that's huge, because those small wins, they can feel like mountains.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like I saw someone posting about finally cleaning their room, and the comments were so supportive, so encouraging.
See, it's those little things, they make a big difference.
It's like they've found their people,
Yeah.
the ones who get it.
Exactly. And in that space, they can be themselves, celebrate those victories.
Yeah, it wasn't just cleaning their room, though. That was a big one. People were talking about acing job interviews, nailing presentations.
Which, let's be real, for someone with ADHD, those can be huge hurdles.
For sure. And it wasn't just like, good job kind of support either.
Yeah.
They were sharing actual tips, strategies, apps that worked for them.
It's like a gold mine of crowdsourced ADHD wisdom in there.
Right. Like there was this whole thread about Apple's Reminders app.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
People were using it for everything. Like it was life-changing.
It speaks to the importance of finding what works for you, right?
Totally. What works for one person might not work for another.
And that's okay. It's about experimenting, figuring out your own groove.
Definitely. And, speaking of figuring things out, there was this one post that really stuck with me. Someone talking about getting diagnosed with ADHD later in life.
That's more common than you might think.
Yeah, and for them, it was like a light bulb moment. Everything finally made sense.
Right. That diagnosis can be so validating.
Like finally you have a name for it. You're not just lazy or disorganized.
Exactly. It's a real condition and it has real solutions.
And knowing that, you can start to build a life that works for you.
Absolutely. That's the empowering part, taking control.
So as we come up for air from this deep dive into the ADHD subreddit, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
I think it's the power of understanding. ADHD is so much more than just the stereotypes.
Right. It's complex. It's different for everyone.
And when we open our minds to that, we create space for empathy, for support.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, if you're feeling intrigued, don't stop here. There's a whole world of resources out there. Communities, support groups, information, you name it.
It's all out there, and you don't have to navigate it alone.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep those minds curious and keep diving deep.